Okay, we are taking a look today at our local city and county government. We have taken a great deal of time this semester looking at our federal government and the three branches of government and all that you need to know about that. We have looked at our state government and how that affects our lives. But today we're going to look at our local Scottsburg City and Scott County government. Being new to the Scottsburg area, learning about and examining how the local county government works. This is an area that may actually affect your life more closely than even the federal or state level government may. Something you're going to have to deal with as a homeowner one day, and paying your taxes, the community you live in, whether that stays as Scott County or moving elsewhere, and to know uh, where to go, how to get things done, and how to be part of the community that you live in. And so, when looking at it, first in the city of Scottsburg, we obviously have a mayor. Most cities do have a mayor. The mayor comes in and is helps run the city and works closely with the city council. They look at laws, they look at policies that will be best for the city, helping the day to day operation of Scottsburg. Here in Scottsburg, as in most cities, whether it be large or small, the mayor appoints the chief of police. Having come from Louisville the last few years, the chief of police has had kind of a turnover down there, and every time Mayor Fisher has appointed a new chief of police. The same is true in a smaller community like we have here in Scottsburg. The chief of police is appointed by the mayor and works closely with the county sheriff, which we'll get into here in just a moment. We also have a local fire department. Just recently, we had the fire over at the plastics factory that the local fire department was responded to immediately. Many times, what's interesting is in smaller communities, you'll have a section of the fire department that's not necessarily paid staff, but is volunteer staff. They still undergo training. There are things that they have to do and accomplish to be part of the fire department. But you many times have volunteers that help out with the fire department just to keep the community safe and make sure that if there is an emergency, they're able to respond to that. And so we have that as part of our local Scottsburg government. Then, looking at planning and zoning, that's basically the layout of the city. We want to make sure that residential areas stay residential, commercial areas stay commercial. And what do you mean by commercial areas? Where the businesses are. You look at where some of the fast food restaurants are in town or some of the storefronts. We want to make sure that those kind of stay together, and that in neighborhoods and other areas that are laid out where homes are, that those stay as homes. Planning and zoning looks at how the city is laid out and where the property is, where you can either build a home or you can build a business. And what you would ever like to do with that property is based on how that property is zoned. If it's zoned residential, you can't build something commercial there. If it's zoned commercial, you can't just put up a house just because you own it, even though you may be the property owner. If it's zoned for a specific designated type of building, you can only put that type of building on there. Scottsburg has a Parks and Rec department. Also, Parks and Rec, excellent show on TV. You need to check that out on Netflix if you've never watched it, from the fictional city of Pawnee, Indiana. It's pretty good stuff. But we have a Parks and Rec department, and they make sure that the parks are well maintained. Had a experience with this recently where we were running a race, a virtual marathon, and they had called the Parks Department to clear off a path over in Lake Iola to make sure there weren't a lot of leaves on that. So if the leaves were wet that morning, that nobody would slip and fall on it. And so the Parks and Rec Department came out and made sure the path was good for running and walking. We also, locally in Scottsburg, have the garbage and recycling services. Garbage and recycling comes in and make sure that everything stays clean. We obviously want to live in a clean community. We want to make sure that when we put that garbage out there on the curb or at the end of the driveway, that somebody's picking that up and able to take that to the city dump. We many times garbage and recycling services in cities are run by companies. You have private companies that sometimes run that, and then other times there are that's run by city government. It just depends, but either way, the city government is still involved in that because they want to make sure that things stay clean, things look nice, so that the city doesn't become a dump. If you think about it of cleaning your room, someone make sure that you get that straight and get in there and clean it up. We want to make sure that some people, even though they don't take care of the city, others do, and so we want to keep the community looking nice, and our garbage and recycling services do and help take care of that. Then we get into some of our county government, and this is where things get a little interesting and something that is going to affect you. First, we have the county assessor. The county assessor comes in and is the one that determines what things are worth. They look at your property, they look at your house, they determine the value of that, and then tell you what your property taxes are based on the assessment that they give. There's a great song in the 60s by Clarence Clearwater Revival called Fortunate Son, and they talk about the tax man comes around, and some of y'all, when the tax man comes around, your house looks like a rummage sale when that's really not how you live. Well, it's the county assessor that comes in and looks at things, assesses what you have, how much property, what's on the property, and says this is the value of the property, this is the value of this, and this is what you owe on it based upon the fact that you're blessed to live in Scott County. They work closely with the county auditor, who is multifaceted in their job. The county auditor works with the county council as well as the county commissioners, helps maintain accounts, does a lot of the day-to-day operation with the monies and the finance, keeps accounts current. The auditor makes sure that the money that the checking accounts and the other accounts say that's in there, that those monies are actually in there, and things are being, what they're designated for, are spent on what they're designated for. And the auditor works closely with the county treasurer in seeing that the monies are, again, spent the way they should. The treasurer takes in the money for the taxes, maintains cash flow, and make sure that the funds are there. And so when you think about these offices, the assessor, the auditor, the treasurer, think about the budget, the funds, and the finances involved there. Then you have the county recorder. The county recorder basically keeps documents, titles, deeds, does record keeping for the county, keeps the county history. We want to make sure that we know our history and know what has happened and taken place in Scott County, and the county recorder is the one that keeps all the documents and the records of that. And so if there's something that you need a record on, if there's something, I want to know who owned this house or this piece of property when, and this type of thing, they're able to find that in the county recorder's office. And so when you think about the documents, think about the county recorder. Then you have the county clerk, the Scott County clerk. They're the ones that issue the marriage licenses. They also are the ones that take care of the divorce when that happens as well. You can do your voter registration there. Of course, voter registration takes place online a lot of times these days. And what happens there? Don't speed across Scott County, but if you do and get a traffic ticket, you're going to have to go and pay that at the county clerk's office. You pay your county taxes there. They're the ones that you're going to come in contact with a lot at the county clerk's office. And they deal with the public a lot, face to face, and where they come in and finance the funding that we do here in the county. And then, of course, that goes to the auditor and the treasurer from there. Then we look at the county surveyor. County surveyor is the one that also works with something like zoning and determines if this is a good place to put something. The county surveyor comes in, they'll look at an area, and many times you'll see them out with their orange vest, and you see the tripod there, that they're out looking at the land and using their tools and instruments to look at areas and determine things like if there's a floodplain, If this is a good area to build a house. Obviously, if it's out in a field and the certain area is known for flooding a lot, when it rains hard, then you don't want to put a home there. You don't want to put a business, and the surveyor is the one that comes out and determines how the lay of the land is, and says this is a good place to build a road, or this is not a good place to build a road, and just make sure that things are looking good in that lay of the land. And so, interesting fact, George Washington, Culpeper County, Virginia surveyor, 1749. At the young age of 17, Washington was a surveyor for Culpeper County, and was able to find this painting. And it just made me laugh because of the Native American in the background with his arms crossed as George Washington is standing there in very much control of the situation, looking over the land in Culpeper County, and the Native Americans are just kind of like, yeah, we've lived here for much longer than you. We know how the land is laid out. But anyway, interesting fun fact of our first president was actually a surveyor for Culpeper County, Virginia. Moving on, we obviously have our Scott County Sheriff. When you think of the areas of public safety and how our local government helps and protects us, the Scott County Sheriff also works with the Scottsburg Police Department. These law enforcement agencies work together. And then, of course, you go on to the state level and you have like the state police and that type of thing. And again, all of these agencies in theory should work together and do work together. You have our Scott County prosecutor. If you commit a crime in Scott County, it's the prosecutor that'll bring those charges, and then the public defender as well that may be provided to you and will be provided to you if you can't afford a lawyer. And again, that's having to do with public safety. And our emergency services. When you call 911, it's local emergency services. You're not calling 911 up to Indianapolis or somewhere off in the distance. It is a local emergency service, and they take care of that and make sure if you're having an emergency, need an ambulance, need a sheriff, need a police officer, that they're able to dispatch the needed services through the 911 services. And so we have our local public safety that obviously impacts our lives on the day-to-day. And then we have the lovely Scott County Health Department. We hear a lot about the health department these days with our COVID-19 crisis and the pandemic, a lot of things about the CDC and others. They work with the Center for Disease Control that's down in Atlanta, that's a national agency. But they keep an eye on what's happening here in Scott County. They've kept an eye on our COVID-19 cases. A few years ago when Austin had the outbreak of an AIDS epidemic, they were able to keep an eye on that. They took numbers from that and cases from that, wanting to make sure that the public stays healthy. They really, even before COVID-19, things like flu season, they keep an eye on flu cases. And again, their job is just to make sure that the citizens of the county stay healthy. You can go and when children are born, immunizations are able to be done at local health departments for shots and this type of thing. And they really work with the medical profession in trying to help and prevent disease. One of the fun facts about the health department, it's where you can go and get birth certificates and death certificates. And so thinking about that you need a government certificate to officially be born and a government certificate to officially die. So just remember, from the time you're born to the time you die, the government is involved in your life. That's why it's important to know your government. And so hopefully this has been able to help you know what agencies we have here in Scott County. You're going to learn a little bit more on your who's who in government of Scottsburg and Scott County. And again, this is an area of government that may affect your life more on the day-to-day than any other. And so know what county you live in, know what city you live in, who fills those offices, and what services the government have for you.